So this section is going to be on the colony of New York. And we may have talked about it in your class last Friday, and some of the classes didn't get to it, but we want to make sure that you understand it and you have a chance to write it down. So the colony of New York actually didn't start out as New York. It was a Dutch colony, and it was considered to be New Amsterdam. And the Dutch came here because it had really amazing ports. It was a great profit colony. So unlike Pennsylvania, that was for religious purposes, it was more like Virginia. Like, what can we do to make some money? So we had that they're going to be having this profit colony. And when we look at, here we go. When we look at it, we have this great colony that the Dutch are going to start because it has great ports. They can come in and out. This is actually where you would see Manhattan today. So if you could picture the Statue of Liberty, that's the location we're looking at. Of course, there was no Statue of Liberty yet, but at least in your head, you can kind of visualize where this is taking place. So the Dutch have this great port, and they invite the people to come there. The people that come there are going to be recruited by these people called patroons. And the patroons basically tell them, you come here, you can start businesses, it'll be awesome. And then when they start to make money, they start to tax them, like heavily tax, to the point that the people that are living in New Amsterdam are pretty irritated with these patroons. They're thinking, man, this is not what I signed up for. So while they're getting taxed heavily, one day, all of a sudden, boom, who shows up? The British. The English have like the most powerful navy in the entire world. And they show up on the shores of New Amsterdam and they tell the people, we are here to take you over. And the New Amsterdam patroons are like, defend us. And the people are like, take it. You can have it. The British are looking at him like, what do you mean we can just have it? He said, just do us a favor. If you're going to take it, will you do us a favor and get rid of these stupid patroons? Because like their taxes are crazy. And can we stay? So the British were able to take it and conquer this territory without any bloodshed. It was just handed to them. And since it was just handed to them, they were able to then turn around and go back to King Charles II and say, whoa, guess what? We just got you a rockin' colony, man. It's awesome. And like nobody got injured. They just gave it to us and we let them live there. So it's already got settlers and they're already used to paying taxes, which we know will be a problem down the road. And then the king is like pretty excited about all this. So he turns around and he gives it to his brother. His brother's in charge of a territory called York. And he says to his brother, hey, guess what? Just got a new colony. I'm giving it to you. So I'm going to give you this great new colony. My dear brother, the Duke of York. What should you name it? And the Duke of York's like, I don't know. New colony? The Duke of York? Let's name it New York. Exactly. And so that's how New York gets its name. So from there, then you start to see the English coming in and settling. And then we know down the road, we'll talk about it a billion times because it ends up being a really hot spot. Why is it a hot spot? Again, lots of great ports. So when even we get to the American Revolution, or when we get to the Civil War, or even when we talked about 9/11, we know that this ends up being a hotbed of all sorts of battles and activities and attacks because of everything it has to offer. But again, it starts out a Dutch colony. And when we get to the American Revolution, you're going to see how this leads to a really great story and some really awesome spies and how it definitely causes some big problems in the future. So looking at your notes, again, we're going to go to your classwork tab in the Google Classroom, to your student study guide. In your student study guide, we've got this whole section on New York. And on the New York part, we have on here, again, you can pause if you need to get your notes, to make sure you have two screens open. You can have me on one side and then your notes on the other. That the Dutch actually started it first and called it New Amsterdam. They were the first ones to settle it. They settled it for the great ports. Vocabulary word, patroons. They were those people who helped to settle the territory. They imposed high taxes and they got to govern over the people. England sent their big bad navy and were able to take it without a fight. And the Dutch people just handed it over. So again, we know this is another one of our prophet colonies. If you didn't do this already, you can certainly put in your New Jersey one, because nobody cares about New Jersey. It got started as a religious colony, and it's in a land debate that we'll talk about in the Pennsylvania section. But I forgot to include the Delaware section. So definitely type that in. Again, not a big deal. Delaware ends up being also a religious colony. And with being a colony for religion, it ends up being that it started for purposes that gives them religious freedom, but there's a debate. Pennsylvania thinks that they own it, and then there's people in Delaware who think they own it, and there's Native Americans who think that they own it. So anyway, land dispute with PA, and then it becomes its own colony. So you can add that in, because I forgot to add that in at the end of the Pennsylvania section so that you have those notes. So fill in your notes, then go to the Pennsylvania section. That'll be your next video.